In professional football, a Super Bowl window is a remarkably fragile thing. It is fleeting. One moment, a franchise is standing right on the precipice of a dynasty. You can practically feel the confetti falling. And then, in the blink of an eye, the window slams shut, and they are forced to completely tear it down and rebuild from scratch. Everything can change in a matter of seconds. Welcome to NFL Nexus. Today, we are bringing you a massive deep dive explainer into the Houston Texans and their incredibly high-stakes, almost desperate pursuit of a championship. Before we go any further, if you want to understand the brutal realities of team building and get the most detailed breakdowns on the internet, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this explainer, leave a comment down below with your thoughts as we go, and please consider supporting this level of deep dive content by becoming a channel member. Now, let's get into this. We are looking at a team that has literally pushed all of their chips into the absolute center of the table. The front office has been working overtime, frantically plugging holes, trying to construct an undeniable juggernaut. But as you're going to see in this explainer today, their margin for error, it is practically zero.
So you have to ask yourself, what happens when raw, explosive, undeniable talent simply isn't enough? Let that question really sink in for a moment, because this is the exact terrifying reality currently facing the Houston Texans. Think about it. For all their flash, for all their incredible viral highlight reel moments that dominate social media, they have been repeatedly, agonizingly derailed by one glaring issue: a historically ineffective running game. Look, you can have a generational elite quarterback. You can have superstar game-breaking wide receivers running wild in September and October. But when you get to the bitter, unforgiving cold of January, when the game entirely shifts and demands sheer physical dominance and the ability to impose your will on the opponent, you absolutely must be able to run the football. The Texans, they just haven't been able to do it. And the organization knows deep down that if they cannot fix this massive foundational crack, the entire beautiful structure they've built will collapse all over again.
Just look at this timeline. It really illustrates the sheer mounting frustration of this franchise. 3 agonizing years. 2023 gave them a Cinderella season of emergence, a feeling of endless hope that was ultimately shattered when the lights got brightest in the postseason. Then comes 2024. The expectations were so much higher, right? The roster was objectively stronger, but the result? The exact same heartbreaking exit. And then we arrive at the 2025 season. Another grueling, physically taxing campaign, another hard-fought division title, only for it to end in another devastating, soul-crushing playoff elimination. 3 distinct, brutal seasons, 3 different iterations of a roster, all united by one singular fatal flaw: the complete inability to control the ground game when it mattered most. The psychological toll of falling short 3 years in a row, it's immense. It sits in the locker room, it haunts the coaching staff. And because of it, they are desperate, absolutely desperate, to finally build a ground attack worthy of hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. So to stop the bleeding, the front office had to make a massive, sweeping tactical shift. They went out and acquired veteran David Montgomery in a major, blockbuster offseason trade with the Detroit Lions. And let's be clear about who Montgomery is. He is a gritty, reliable, punishing, between-the-tackles enforcer. He is a battering ram meant to take on the heavy, violent burden of those early downs. But bringing in a dominant force like that, it creates a huge, unavoidable ripple effect across the rest of the backfield. Suddenly, Woody Marks, the young back who spent the vast majority of the 2025 season as the definitive starting running back, finds himself in a sudden, jarring demotion. He goes from being the main guy carrying the load to a highly specialized, situational third-down weapon. The entire psychological dynamic of this backfield, the tactical chess match of how they deploy their runners, has been completely fractured and reformed. Just listen to the heavy reality in this quote from running backs coach Danny Barrett. He put it bluntly, stating, "I think the key for Woody is understanding his role. His role is going to pick up some third downs, special teams, he's a kickoff return guy, but more importantly, probably in the passing game as well." I want you to really hear what Barrett is saying there. That is coaching code for swallow your pride. Check your ego at the door. Think about this from Woody Marks' perspective. During that 2025 season, playing in all 16 games, he grinded out 703 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the guy taking the hits, carrying the load, and now he's being explicitly told to take a back seat, to go run back kickoffs, to just come in on third down and block or catch passes. It is a massive, incredibly difficult micro-adjustment for a player to make. If Marks can adapt, if he can truly accept this specialized role for the ultimate team goal, this 1-2 punch with Montgomery could be historically lethal. But if pride gets in the way, if the locker room dynamic sours, that ground game could fail them all over again. But here's the thing, the offensive backfield?
it isn't even the only terrifying question mark on this roster. Let's shift our cinematic focus for a moment to the defensive trenches, because what is lurking there is genuinely concerning. Look, we all know about the superstars, Will Anderson, Daniel Hunter. They are top 10 generational talents, absolute forces of nature coming off the edge, ruining opposing game plans by themselves. But football is a game of attrition. It's a violent, exhausting war spanning 17 games. Even superhumans need a breather. And when Anderson and Hunter have to step off the field to catch their breath, say on a crucial, game-defining 3rd and long deep in the 4th quarter, that is exactly where the terrifying drop-off begins. We have to talk about this, because the Texans are facing a genuine, full-blown edge rusher depth crisis. Let's look at the reality. Last season, when the starters needed a rest, they had hardened, reliable, battle-tested veterans to lean on, guys like Danico Autry and Derek Burnett. These were rotational pieces who intrinsically knew the violent rhythm of the trenches. They didn't panic. But in free agency, the front office let them walk, and shockingly, they didn't sign any proven replacements. So now, the immense, suffocating pressure of a championship pursuit rests entirely on these 4 unproven names: Dylan Horton, Dominique Robinson, Ali Gay, Sebastian Harsh. Think about the scale of that gamble. If just one of these young developing players fails to step up and become a reliable 3rd edge rusher, if they get bullied by veteran offensive tackles, the structural integrity of this entire defensive line could easily, violently collapse. Yet, despite this glaring crisis, head coach DeMeco Ryans remains stoic. He recently addressed this exact situation, noting, "We're still figuring out who those 8 or 9 guys will be. It'll be really tough competition in training camp that I'm excited to see." Now, you have to respect the confidence, but you also have to question it. Is this just blind faith and internal development? Look, it is incredibly easy to be optimistic during minicamp. The sun is shining, the guys are in shorts and t-shirts running drills without pads. But it's an entirely different, incredibly violent reality in the grueling, freezing, high-stakes environment of a January playoff game. The front office is making a massive, franchise-altering gamble. They are essentially betting that just being in the same meeting room as Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter is going to magically, somehow, elevate these unproven young players into championship-caliber depth. If they're wrong, it's over.
But as uncertain and fragile as the trenches may seem right now, we have to talk about the defense's biggest, brightest spot. Transitioning to the back end, to the secondary, we are witnessing the emergence of an absolute lethal weapon. We're talking about a player whose violent, ultra-competitive mentality is rapidly becoming a literal nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. It is an emergence that completely embodies the exact unbreakable, gritty culture the Texans are so desperately trying to establish across the entire roster.
What they've done is assemble a truly terrifying tandem on the boundary. It's a chess match every time the opposing offense breaks the huddle. On one side of the field, you have Derek Stingley Jr., an elite, undeniably all-pro talent, a guy with the raw athleticism that everyone in the league fears and respects. But on the exact opposite side, lurking in the shadows, is Kamari Lassiter, the unbreakable number 2. And the contrast here is fascinating. See, Lassiter, he entirely lacks the raw, blazing 4.3 speed of his peers. He's not going to win a track meet. But he completely masks those physical limitations with a devastatingly physical, hard-hitting approach to the position. He doesn't just cover wide receivers, he physically punishes them. He dictates the terms of the engagement. He demands the entire league's attention, even when he's lining up opposite a certified superstar like Stingley.
I want to meticulously break down exactly what that violence looks like. Let's look at this number, 91. In his 2025 campaign, Kamari Lassiter flew around the field and violently racked up 91 combined tackles. I need to put that into perspective for you. For a cornerback playing on the perimeter, 91 collisions in a single season is a staggering, almost absurd number. When you pair that sheer volume with his 7 tackles for loss, it paints a very clear picture. It proves he is not just a cover guy. He is not afraid to stick his nose right into the heart of the run game and blow up a play in the backfield. He operates with a terrifying level of aggression that literally makes opposing wide receivers hesitate when they are asked to run crossing routes over the middle. He is an absolute, uncompromising enforcer on the perimeter.
But the brilliance of Kamari Lassiter is that he doesn't just hit people. Look at this next number, 17. Lassiter tallied a whopping 17 passes defended in that single 2025 season. 17! Because he lacks that top-end breakaway speed we talked about, he is absolutely forced to overcompensate with elite, meticulous, almost robotic footwork. And his technique is flawless. He studies the receiver's hips, he anticipates the break before the receiver even makes it, and he uses his body leverage to completely aggressively erase any inch of separation.
Think about that. 17 times last season, an NFL quarterback dropped back, looked at Lassiter's side of the field, thought they had an open window, and 17 times, Lassiter's suffocating man-in-zone coverage, his absolute technical perfection, slammed that window shut. And then you factor in the turnovers. Four brutal game-altering interceptions. Lassiter isn't just surviving out there, he is operating as a ball-hawking, opportunistic predator. And this is where the dynamic with Stingley becomes so lethal. Opposing offenses are often so incredibly afraid of throwing the ball in Derek Stingley's direction that they make the fatal decision to test Lassiter instead. They think he's the weak link. And Lassiter consistently aggressively makes them pay for that disrespect. When you combine his violent aggressive tackling, his suffocating elite footwork, and his sheer undeniable nose for stealing the football away, you get a player that elevates the entire defensive unit from good to truly terrifying. The league is absolutely taking notice of this. Let the haunting words of this anonymous rival NFC coach echo for a second. This coach recently validated all of Lassiter's terrifying potential, stating to the press, really good ball skills, not the fastest, but ultra-competitive. A little more size and speed, and he might be the best. That is an incredible thing to hear from a rival. It confirms exactly why Lassiter is succeeding at such a high level despite his physical limitations. His mind, his heart, his preparation. He simply outworks and outmatches the men he lines up against on every single snap. And then, that exact same coach followed it up with this definitive, striking statement. He called Montgomery Lassiter the best number 2 corner in the league. Just let that statement hang in the air for a few seconds. In an era completely defined by explosive passing attacks, having an elite shutdown duo on the boundary is the absolute ultimate luxury in the NFL. Settling in and embracing the role of being the absolute best number 2 corner behind an all-pro, that solidifies Lassiter's critical do-or-die role on this unit. Look, if that unproven defensive line depth we talked about earlier actually does crumble at some point this season, Lassiter and Stingley are going to be the ones forced to hold the fort. They are the ultimate safety net.
So, what does this all mean? We come back to the ultimate question. Will these highly specific micro-adjustments actually be enough to rewrite history? We've explored the massive power shift in the backfield, desperately hoping that Woody Marks can swallow his pride and embrace a new role to finally fix a broken ground game. We've dissected the high-stakes, incredibly risky gamble on the defensive line, praying that unproven depth can somehow survive the brutal reality of the trenches. And we've highlighted a remarkable secondary dominance, where sheer willpower and violence are masking physical limitations. The Texans are so carefully, so desperately constructing this roster, micromanaging every detail, trying to ensure it is finally strong enough to break their 3-year curse of agonizing postseason heartbreak.
But here is the haunting reality. The theoretical planning, the whiteboards, the trades of the offseason, all of that is officially over. The real war, the actual physical toll, starts the exact second they step onto the field in training camp. The Super Bowl window is cracked open right now, but in the NFL, as we know, it can slam shut permanently at any given moment. Will the Houston Texans finally break through and rewrite their legacy, or are they destined for a 4th, unforgiving year of heartbreak? We are going to find out soon enough. This has been NFL Nexus. If you appreciated this level of deep dive analysis, do not leave without subscribing to the channel. Hit that like button, let us know your thoughts on the Texans' chances in the comment section below, and take the next step by becoming a channel member to support more explainers exactly like this one. We'll see you in the next breakdown.